The massive alien ship hung in space like a dark metal mountain. Its surface was covered with strange symbols that glowed with purple light. Captain Jake Morrison stood at the window of the lunar station, watching the vessel with careful eyes. He had seen many ships in his 20 years with the Earth Defense Fleet, but nothing like this. "They want to talk," said Lisa Parker, the Earth's top diplomat. She walked up beside Jake, her face serious. "The message came through an hour ago. They call themselves the Galactic Council." Jake nodded slowly. "How many ships do they have?" "Just this one for now." "But Jake, the size of that thing. It could destroy our entire moon base without breaking a sweat." The meeting room was simple and clean. White walls, a long table, and chairs for the human representatives. Jake sat next to Lisa, along with General Amy Stone and 3 other Earth officials. They waited in silence until the alien delegation entered. The first alien was tall and thin, with blue skin that seemed to shimmer. Its head was large, with 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. Behind it came 2 more creatures, both different from the first. One looked like a walking tree with silver bark, while the other resembled a giant insect with golden wings. "I am Ambassador Zix Thera of the Veltani race," the blue alien spoke through a translation device. Its voice was cold and mechanical. "I represent the Galactic Council, rulers of this galaxy for 50,000 years. Lisa stood up and smiled. "Welcome. I'm Lisa Parker, representing Earth and humanity. We're honored to meet you." Zix Thera did not return the smile. "This is not a social visit. The Council has discovered your species and your world. You will now receive our standard integration terms." The alien pulled out a small device and pressed a button. Holographic words appeared in the air, written in perfect English. Jake read them quickly, his face growing darker with each line. "These are your requirements," Zix Thera continued. "First, Earth will submit to Council authority immediately. Second, you will provide 30% of your population for work assignments across Council territories. Third, you will stop all space travel beyond your home system. Fourth, Earth will provide 60% of its resources to the Council each year. Fifth, no human military forces will be allowed." The room fell silent. Jake looked at Lisa, then at General Stone. The general's hands were clenched into fists. "These terms are not negotiable," the tree-like alien said. "Every species in the galaxy has accepted them. Resistance is pointless." Lisa cleared her throat. "Ambassador Zix Thera, we appreciate you coming all this way. However, these terms are quite extensive. We would like some time to discuss them with our government." The insect alien made a clicking sound that might have been laughter. "Discussion? No species has ever requested discussion. You accept or you face correction." "What exactly is correction?" General Stone asked. Zix Thera's 4 eyes focused on her. "Your military installations will be destroyed. Your major cities will be bombed until you comply. Your population will be reduced to manageable levels. This is standard procedure." Jake felt his blood grow cold. These aliens were talking about attacking Earth like it was nothing more than a business transaction. "How long do we have?" Lisa asked, her voice steady despite the terrible news. 72 hours, Zix Thera replied. "This is more time than most species receive. Do not waste it." The aliens left without another word. Their ship departed the lunar station and moved to a position near Earth's moon, waiting and watching. Jake and Lisa returned to Earth immediately. The government buildings in Washington were full of activity. People ran through hallways carrying papers and talking quickly into phones. President Ryan Collins called an emergency meeting with all the top military leaders. The Situation Room was packed. President Collins sat at the head of the table, looking tired but determined. Around him sat the most important people in Earth's defense: General Amy Stone, Admiral Luke Carter, Director of Intelligence Kate Mitchell, and a dozen other officials. "Tell me everything," the president said. Lisa explained the alien demands while Jake described their technology. Admiral Carter shook his head when he heard about the 30% population requirement. "They want to take 1.5 billion people," he said. "That's not integration, that's slavery. What are our options?" President Collins asked. General Stone leaned forward. "We have 3 choices, Mr. President. We can accept their terms and become slaves. We can negotiate and hope they'll take less than 30% of our people, or we can fight. The president looked around the room. "Can we win?" Jake spoke up. "Sir, their ship is massive. Their technology looks far ahead of ours. In a straight fight, we'd probably lose." "Probably isn't definitely," said Admiral Carter. Our fleets are spread across the system. We have weapons they might not expect. Director Mitchell pulled out a tablet. I've been analyzing their ship. There are some interesting things. They seem very confident, maybe too confident. They're not using any stealth technology. They're not scanning our defenses very carefully. It's like they don't think we're a real threat. Are we a threat? The president asked. Maybe, Kate said, if we're smart about it. The room was quiet for a long moment. Everyone knew this was the most important decision in human history. President Collins looked around the table. I need to know what everyone thinks. General Stone? We fight, sir. Humans don't bow to bullies. Admiral Carter? I agree with the general. Freedom isn't free. Director Mitchell? We have surprises they don't know about. I say we use them. One by one, every person in the room gave the same answer. Fight. President Collins nodded slowly. Then we fight. God help us, we fight. Jake returned to the lunar station to deliver Earth's response. The alien ship was still there, dark and waiting. He thought about his family back on Earth, about all the people who would suffer if this went wrong. But he also thought about what it would mean to give up without trying. 72 hours passed quickly. Earth's military forces moved into position throughout the solar system. Ships that had been patrolling the outer planets came home. Weapons were loaded and systems checked. Everyone knew the aliens would return for their answer. When Zixthera's ship approached the lunar station again, Jake was ready. Lisa stood beside him, along with General Stone and Admiral Carter, who had come up from Earth. The aliens entered the meeting room as they had before, confident and cold. What is your decision? Zixthera asked. Lisa stood up straight and looked the alien in the eyes. We reject your terms. All of them. The three aliens stared at her in shock. For several seconds nobody spoke. You reject them? The tree-like alien finally said. This is impossible. No species rejects the council. We do, Jake said firmly. We're not interested in being slaves. Zixthera's four eyes moved between the humans. You do not understand. You cannot resist the council. No one resists the council. We're willing to discuss a different kind of relationship, Lisa said. Trade agreements, cultural exchange, mutual defense treaties. We want to be friends, not servants. The insect alien clicked angrily. Friends? You are a primitive species on a single world. We are the rulers of the galaxy. You will submit or be destroyed. General Stone stepped forward. Then I guess we'll be destroyed. Because we're not submitting. The aliens left the station quickly, their confident attitude replaced by confusion and anger. As their ship moved away, Jake watched through the window. Think we did the right thing? He asked Lisa. She nodded. Free people don't have any other choice. The die was cast. Earth had refused to bend, and now they would face the consequences. The council chamber was a massive dome floating in deep space, surrounded by 12 smaller stations. Each station belonged to one of the ruling species that controlled the galaxy. For 50,000 years, this place had been the center of absolute power. High Counselor Mordak sat on his throne, a creature so old that most races had forgotten what his original species looked like. His body was a mix of machine and flesh, kept alive by technology that was ancient when humanity was still living in caves. Around him sat the other 11 council members, each representing billions of subjects across thousands of worlds. Impossible, Mordak said, his voice echoing through the chamber. Ambassador Zixthera, repeat your report. The blue-skinned ambassador stood in the center of the chamber, looking small under the gaze of the 12 rulers. The humans have rejected our terms, High Counselor. All terms. They refuse to submit to council authority. Counselor Vexanina of the Thorak Empire leaned forward, her 6 arms gesturing wildly. This cannot be correct. Every species submits. The Kralek submitted after seeing one ship. The Menturi submitted before we even landed. How can these humans refuse? They did more than refuse, Zixthera continued. They made a counter-proposal. They wanted to discuss trade agreements and cultural exchanges. They spoke of mutual defense treaties. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Council members spoke in a dozen different languages, all expressing the same shock and rage. Never in 50 millennia had a species dared to negotiate with the council as equals. General Kek Thul, the council's military commander, stood up from his position. He was a massive creature with thick armor plating and 4 arms, each ending in sharp claws. High Counselor, this is clearly a misunderstanding. The humans are a young species with primitive technology. They simply do not understand their position. Explain their position to them, Mordak commanded. Kekthul bowed his great head. I will dispatch a correction fleet immediately. 50 ships should be more than enough to make them see reason. No species has ever resisted once they see our true power. Commander Nick Hayes sat in his intelligence station, analyzing the data from the human encounter. He was a smaller creature than most council species, with green skin and large black eyes. His people, the Sikari, had been among the first to join the council 3,000 years ago. They had become the council's information gatherers and analysts. Something about the human response bothered Nick. He had studied the integration of hundreds of species, and he had never seen anything like this. Most species begged for mercy when they saw council ships. Some tried to negotiate for better terms. A few attempted to hide or run away, but none had ever spoken to the council with such confidence. Nick pulled up the recordings from the human meeting. He watched Lisa Parker's face as she rejected the council terms. There was no fear in her eyes, no desperation. She spoke like someone who had other options. Computer, analyze human ship movements in their home system over the past 72 hours, Nick commanded. Data flowed across his screen. What he saw made his blood run cold. Human ships had not scattered in panic as expected. Instead, they had moved into formation throughout their solar system. Their positioning suggested military coordination, not random flight patterns. Nick dug deeper into the data. Human communication signals were encrypted with methods he had never seen before. Their ship designs used propulsion systems that didn't match anything in council databases. Most disturbing of all, several human vessels had been detected in positions that should have been impossible to reach with their supposed level of technology. Computer. Estimate human population based on available data. The answer appeared on his screen and Nick nearly fell from his chair. According to energy signatures, communication traffic, and ship movements, the human population was far larger than expected. Instead of the 8 billion people on their homeworld that Zix-Thara had reported, the computer estimated over 50 billion humans spread across multiple star systems. Nick immediately sent a priority message to General Kekthul, but received an automated response. The general was already en route to the human system with his correction fleet. Admiral Vextral commanded the correction fleet from his flagship, a massive dreadnought that had conquered 100 worlds. Around him flew 49 other vessels, each one capable of destroying entire cities. This was more firepower than had been used to subdue the last 10 species combined. Admiral, his communications officer reported, we are entering the human system now. Excellent, Vextral replied. Open a channel to the human homeworld. Tell them that their time for submission has arrived. But as the council fleet moved deeper into the Sol system, they encountered something no one had expected. Human ships were waiting for them. Not just a few patrol vessels, but an entire fleet arranged in perfect battle formation. Sir, the sensor officer called out, his voice uncertain. I count over 200 human vessels. They appear to be military ships. Vextral studied his tactical display. The human ships were positioned in a three-dimensional formation that he had never seen before. It looked almost like a flower, with layers of petals that could close around an enemy force. 200 ships? Vextral laughed. They have been busy. Open communications. The main screen showed a human woman in a military uniform. She had short brown hair and steady eyes. This is Captain Kate Ross of the Human Defense Fleet. You are entering sovereign human space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions. Vextral was amused by her formal tone. I am Admiral Vextral of the Galactic Council. You will surrender immediately or face the consequences of your rebellion. Captain Ross did not blink. Admiral, you have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave our system. This is your only warning. Warning. Vextral could barely contain his laughter. Little human, you face the might of the Council. Your primitive ships cannot stand against us. 20 seconds, Kate Ross said calmly. Vextral cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. Prepare to fire on their homeworld. Once they see their cities burning, they will beg for mercy. 10 seconds, came Kate Ross's voice over the general communication channel. Fire, Vextral commanded. But before his ships could lock onto Earth, the human fleet struck first. The attack came from all directions at once, catching the Council ships completely off guard. Human weapons tore through Council shields as if they were made of paper. Explosions lit up the darkness of space as Council vessels were destroyed one after another. Bextrel watched in horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart in minutes. Human fighters moved in patterns that made no sense, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. Their weapons fired beams of energy that seemed to bend space itself. "Retreat!" Vexitral screamed. "All ships retreat!" Only 5 ships escaped the battle, racing back toward Council space with news of the impossible defeat. Behind them, the human fleet remained in formation, waiting and watching. Back in the Council chamber, High Counselor Mordak received the report in stunned silence. Of 50 ships, only 5 had returned. The correction fleet had been annihilated by a species they had considered primitive. "How is this possible?" Counselor Vexnina demanded. "Our ships are invincible. Our technology is supreme." Commander Nick Hayes stepped forward, his intelligence report in hand. "High Counselor, I believe we have been deceived. The humans are not a single-world species. My analysis suggests they have colonies throughout their local region of space. Their technology is far more advanced than we assumed." Mordak's ancient eyes focused on Nick. "How advanced?" "Unknown, High Counselor. But advanced enough to destroy our fleet without losing a single ship." The chamber fell silent. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Council had met a species that could match their power. The thought terrified them. "What do we do?" asked Counselor Thrain of the Mystic Collective. Mordak considered the question carefully. The Council's authority depended on their reputation for invincible strength. If word spread that humans could defeat them, other species might begin to rebel. "We assemble the Grand Fleet," Mordak finally announced. "Every available ship. If these humans think they can stand against the Council, we will show them the true meaning of power." But even as he spoke, Mordak felt something he had not experienced in thousands of years. Doubt. The humans had spoken with confidence because they had the power to back up their words. For the first time, the Council faced an enemy that might actually be able to destroy them. News of the human victory spread faster than the Council could control it. On 1,000 worlds, subject species whispered the impossible news. Someone had fought the Council and won. Someone had refused to bend. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Captain Kate Ross stood on the bridge of the human flagship Liberty, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Around her, the bridge crew worked quietly at their stations. The battle with the Council fleet had ended 6 hours ago, but everyone remained at high alert. "Captain," Communications Officer Sam Torres called out, "we're receiving a priority message from Earth Command." Kate nodded. "Put it through." Admiral Luke Carter appeared on the main screen, his face serious but proud. "Excellent work, Captain Ross. How are your people?" "No casualties, sir. No damage to any of our ships." "Good. Intel suggests the Council will send a much larger force next time. How long until our reinforcements arrive?" Kate checked her tactical display. "The second fleet should be here in 18 hours. The third fleet is 2 days behind them." Admiral Carter smiled grimly. "Then we'd better hope the Council takes their time." After the communication ended, Kate walked to the observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see Earth hanging in space like a blue jewel. It was hard to believe that her home world had just declared war on an empire that ruled the galaxy. Lieutenant Commander Beth Lane joined her at the window. Beth was Kate's fighter squadron leader, a small woman with quick reflexes and a sharp mind. "Think we bit off more than we can chew?" Beth asked. Kate considered the question. "Maybe, but what choice did we have?" "None," Beth agreed. "Better to die free than live as slaves." On Earth, President Ryan Collins met with his War Council in the secure bunker beneath the Pentagon. The room was filled with military leaders, scientists, and intelligence officers. Everyone looked tired but determined. "Report," the president said simply. General Amy Stone stood up. "The first engagement went better than expected. Captain Ross's fleet performed perfectly. Council losses were total, only 5 ships escaped. Our losses? 0 casualties, minimal damage to 3 ships. All repairs completed within 4 hours." President Collins looked surprised. 0 casualties? Against 50 enemy ships? Admiral Carter leaned forward. "Mr. President, we've been preparing for this fight for longer than the Council realizes. Our technology has advantages they don't understand." "Explain." Dr. Frank Stone, the President's science advisor, activated a holographic display. Sir, for the past 30 years, we've been developing weapons and defense systems specifically designed to counter Council technology. We studied their ship designs from long-range observations. We analyzed their tactics from historical records. We built our entire fleet around fighting them. The hologram showed a cutaway view of a human warship. Our ships use quantum phase generators that can shift our weapons through Council shield frequencies. Our engines run on controlled micro-black holes, giving us speed and maneuverability they can't match. Our armor uses crystallized dark matter that becomes stronger when hit with energy weapons. President Collins studied the display. How long have we known about the Council? 67 years, sir, said Director Kate Mitchell. We detected their signals in 1958. Since then, we've been watching and learning. When they finally made contact, we were ready. Meanwhile, deep in space, the Council's Grand Fleet was assembling. Over 2,000 ships gathered at the Nexus staging area, a massive space station that served as the Council's primary military base. This was the largest force ever assembled in galactic history. High Counselor Mordak arrived on his personal dreadnought, a ship the size of a small moon. The vessel had been his home for 3,000 years, and its weapons could crack planets. If the humans thought they had seen power before, they were about to learn the truth. Fleet Admiral Gorthak commanded the Grand Fleet from his flagship, a vessel so large it had its own gravity generators and atmospheric systems. Gorthak was a veteran of 100 campaigns, a creature whose species had evolved from predators that hunted in the void of space. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported, we have new data on the human forces. Gorthak studied the holographic display. Show me. The display revealed the Sol system in detail. Human ships were positioned throughout the system in complex formations. Space stations orbited every planet and major asteroid. The entire system looked like a fortress. How many ships? Gorthak asked. Approximately 800, Admiral. But sir, there's something else. We're detecting what appear to be human colonies in 7 other star systems, within 50 light-years of their homeworld. Gorthak's eyes widened. 7 systems? The initial report said they were confined to 1 world. The reports were wrong, Admiral. The humans have been expanding for decades, possibly centuries. Total human military strength is estimated at over 3,000 ships. For the first time in his career, Gorthak felt uncertainty. 3,000 ships was a respectable fleet, even by Council standards. Back on Earth, Colonel Alex Murphy briefed the President on humanity's true capabilities. Alex commanded Earth's Special Operations Division, the group responsible for humanity's most secret projects. Mr. President, it's time to tell you about the Colonial Alliance. President Collins looked confused. What alliance? Sir, for the past 150 years, humans have been establishing colonies throughout local space. We now have permanent settlements on over 300 worlds across 12 star systems. Total human population is approximately 52 billion people. The President stared at him in shock. 52 billion? How is that possible? Advanced terraforming technology, sir. Faster than light travel. We've been expanding quietly, staying below the Council's detection threshold. Until now, they didn't know we existed beyond Earth. General Stone activated another holographic display. Sir, the Colonial Defense Fleet consists of over 4,000 ships. The home defense fleet that just fought the Council is only a small part of our total strength. President Collins sat back in his chair, overwhelmed. 4,000 ships? We're not just one world fighting an empire. We're an empire fighting an empire, yes sir, and our technology is specifically designed to fight the Council. We've had over 60 years to prepare. In the Sol system, Captain Kate Ross received a priority communication from Admiral Grace Kelly, commander of the Colonial Defense Fleet. Grace was a veteran officer who had overseen humanity's expansion into deep space for the past 20 years. Kate, how are you holding up? Grace asked. We're ready for whatever comes next, Admiral. What's our tactical situation? The Council is assembling a massive fleet. Over 2,000 ships, maybe more. But we have surprises they don't know about. What kind of surprises? Grace smiled. The kind that will end this war before it really begins. Hold your position, Captain. Help is coming. 3 days later, the Council's Grand Fleet entered the Sol system. High Counselor Mordak watched from his command ship as 2,000 vessels moved into attack formation. This was enough firepower to destroy entire civilizations. Open communications with the human homeworld, Mordak commanded. President Collins appeared on the communication screen. standing in the Oval Office with his military advisors behind him. He looked calm and confident, which surprised Mordak. "I am High Counselor Mordak, Supreme Ruler of the Galactic Council. You have defied our authority and destroyed our ships. You will surrender immediately, or we will burn your world to ash." President Collins looked directly at the ancient creature. "High Counselor, I am Ryan Collins, President of the Human Colonial Alliance. We have no intention of surrendering. You are welcome to leave our space peacefully, or you can face the consequences of your aggression." Human Colonial Alliance. Mordak was confused. "You are one world, one primitive species." "No," President Collins replied. "We are 300 worlds, 52 billion people, and we've been preparing for this fight for a very long time." As if summoned by his words, human ships began appearing throughout the Sol system. They didn't arrive through normal space travel. They seemed to materialize out of nothing, using technology the Council had never seen before. Within minutes, the Council fleet found itself surrounded by over 4,000 human warships. The humans had not just refused to bend, they had set a trap. Admiral Gorthak stared at his tactical display in disbelief. How did they hide so many ships? Where did they come from? His intelligence officer checked the sensors frantically. "Sir, they're using some kind of phase shift technology. They were here all along, just invisible to our sensors." Captain Kate Ross opened a communication channel to the entire Council fleet. "Council ships, you are surrounded and outgunned. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. Continue your aggression and you will be destroyed." High Counselor Mordak felt something he had not experienced in millennia. Fear. The humans had not just resisted the Council, they had outmaneuvered them completely. For 50,000 years, the Council had ruled through superior technology and overwhelming force. Now they faced a species that matched them in both. The die was cast, and for the first time in galactic history, it was the Council that faced destruction. The news traveled across the galaxy at the speed of light, carried by automated communication networks that connected every Council world. For the first time in 50,000 years, the Council fleet had been surrounded and outmatched. The impossible had happened. A species had not only refused to submit, but had trapped the Council's greatest military force. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, a Thorak overseer named Vexthol watched the news broadcast with growing excitement. His people had been slaves to the Council for 3,000 years, working in the deep mines to extract rare crystals. Around him, other Thorak workers stopped their labor to listen. "The humans did what?" asked Mortak, an elderly Thorak whose back was bent from decades of mining. "They surrounded the entire Council fleet," Vexthol repeated. Over 4,000 human ships appeared out of nowhere. "The Council is trapped." For a moment, the mine fell silent. Then someone began to laugh. Soon every Thorak in the tunnel was laughing, crying, or shouting with joy. After 3 millennia of slavery, someone had finally stood up to their masters. Similar scenes played out across 1,000 worlds. On the agricultural planet of Sigma Draconis, enslaved Sakari farmers threw down their tools and danced in the fields. On the factory world of Wolf 359, Mentry workers stopped production lines and sang songs of freedom they had not dared to voice in centuries. But the Council loyalists responded with fury and fear. On the fortress world of Arcturus Prime, General Kekthul smashed his command table in rage. "Impossible. No single species can match the Grand Fleet. The humans must have allies we don't know about." His aide, Commander Erikstal, pulled up intelligence reports. "Sir, our agents report no signs of alien technology in the human fleet. Their ships appear to be entirely of human design." "Then how?" Kekthul demanded. "How does a species we discovered 3 days ago possess technology superior to ours?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Commander Nick Hayes, the Council intelligence officer, had been analyzing human communications intercepts for weeks. What he discovered changed everything. Nick stood before the emergency session of the High Council, his report displayed on the massive screens around the chamber. "Honored counselors, the humans have been deceiving us from the moment of first contact." High Counselor Mordak, still trapped in the Sol system, attended the meeting through quantum communication. His ancient face showed concern and anger. "Explain." "The humans detected our signals 67 years ago," Nick continued. "They have been studying us ever since. They knew we were coming long before we made contact. Everything about their response was planned." Counselor Vexanina leaned forward. You're saying they deliberately appeared weak? Yes, they wanted us to underestimate them. While we thought we were discovering a primitive single-world species, they were actually a multi-system civilization that had been preparing for war. The chamber erupted in angry voices. The council members could not accept that they had been outsmarted by a species they considered inferior. In the Sol system, the standoff continued. 4,000 human ships surrounded 2,000 council vessels in a complex formation that allowed no escape. The council fleet was powerful enough to destroy planets, but they were outnumbered and outmaneuvered. Admiral Grace Kelly commanded the human forces from her flagship Defiance. She was a tall woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, a veteran of humanity's colonial expansion who understood both war and diplomacy. Admiral, her communications officer reported, "The council flagship is requesting to speak with you." Grace nodded. "Put them through." High Counselor Mordak appeared on the main screen. Up close, he looked even more ancient and terrible, a creature that had witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. "Human Commander," Mordak said. "I am High Counselor Mordak. You have made a grave error. Release my fleet and I will consider granting you a quick death." Grace smiled coldly. "High Counselor, you seem to misunderstand the situation. You are the one who is trapped. Your fleet is surrounded and outgunned. I suggest you consider surrender. Surrender." Mordak's voice carried 50,000 years of absolute authority. "The Council does not surrender. We have ruled this galaxy since before your species existed. We will rule it long after you are extinct." "That's where you're wrong," Grace replied. "Your time is over. The age of freedom has begun." Back on Earth, President Collins met with leaders from across the Human Colonial Alliance. The secure conference room contained holographic representations of governors and military commanders from dozens of human worlds. Governor Lisa Martinez of New California spoke first. "Mr. President, our intelligence networks report uprisings beginning on 17 council worlds. The news of our victory is spreading faster than they can control it." Admiral Dan Cooper of the Outer Colonies Fleet nodded. "Sir, we're receiving communications from several species asking for our help. The Thorak Resistance Movement wants to coordinate with our forces. The Sikari Underground is planning coordinated strikes against council installations." President Collins looked around the virtual room. "Are we ready to expand this beyond the Sol system?" General Amy Stone answered immediately. "Yes, sir. We have sufficient forces to begin liberation operations. Our fleets are positioned throughout council space waiting for orders." "Then give the order," President Collins said. "Begin Operation Freedom Dawn." Across the galaxy, human fleets that had been hiding in dark space suddenly activated their engines and began moving toward council strongholds. The humans had spent decades positioning their forces, and now they struck simultaneously at hundreds of targets. On Kepler 442b, human ships appeared in orbit just as the Thorak uprising reached its peak. Captain Jake Morrison, now promoted to Commodore, led the Liberation Force. His ships destroyed the orbital defense platforms while Thorak rebels seized control of the surface installations. Vexthul, the Thorak overseer who had first heard the news, found himself face-to-face with Jake in the Mine Administrative Center. "Are you really here to free us?" Vexthul asked in broken English. Jake nodded. "Yes, no more slavery. No more council rule. You're free." Vexthul fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "Free? After 3,000 years, we are free." Similar scenes played out across dozens of worlds. Human forces, working with local resistance movements, toppled council governors and destroyed military installations. The empire that had ruled for 50 millennia was crumbling in a matter of days, but the council's response was swift and brutal. On worlds where uprisings failed, council forces implemented purification protocols, the systematic execution of rebel populations. Entire cities were destroyed from orbit. Fleet Admiral Gorthak, still trapped in the Sol system, received reports of the spreading rebellion with growing horror. "How many worlds?" he asked his communications officer. 43 systems in active rebellion, Admiral, another dozen showing signs of unrest. "We're losing control." Gorthak turned to High Counselor Mordak. "High Counselor, we must break out of this trap. The Empire is falling apart." Mordak stared at the tactical display showing the human ships surrounding them. "I know. Prepare the fleet for a breakout attempt." But Admiral Grace Kelly had anticipated this. As the council ships began to move, The human formation shifted like a living thing. Every escape route was blocked before the council could reach it. "This is impossible," Gorthak muttered. "How do they coordinate so perfectly?" The answer was humanity's greatest secret. Quantum communication networks that allowed instantaneous coordination across vast distances. Every human ship was connected to every other human ship, creating a single unified intelligence that could react faster than any conventional command structure. On the fortress world of Proxima Centauri, Colonel Alex Murphy led a strike team to capture the Council's regional command center. The battle was fierce, but human technology proved superior. Phase-shift weapons cut through Council armor like paper, while quantum shields deflected energy beams that should have been devastating. Murphy stood in the command center's main hall, surrounded by captured Council officers. "Send a message to all Council forces in this sector," he ordered. "Surrender now and you will be treated fairly. Continue fighting and you will be destroyed." One of the Council officers, a proud Veltani general, spat at Murphy's feet. "We will never surrender to inferior species like you." Murphy looked at him sadly. "General, we're not the inferior species here. You enslaved half the galaxy and called it order. We're just setting things right." As reports flooded in from across the galaxy, it became clear that the Council's empire was collapsing faster than anyone had expected. 50,000 years of tyranny was ending not in a single great battle, but in 1,000 small victories by people who had finally found the courage to fight for their freedom. The humans had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that even the mightiest empire could fall if enough people refused to bend. In the Sol system, High Counselor Mordak watched his empire crumble on the communication screens. Species that had served the Council for millennia were declaring independence. Worlds that had provided resources and slaves were going silent. "What do you want?" Mordak finally asked Admiral Grace Kelly. Grace's answer was simple. "We want you to leave. All of you. Go back to..." The final confrontation came at the Nexus Station, the ancient seat of Council power. The massive structure floated in the void between galaxies, a testament to the Council's might built over tens of thousands of years. Its weapons could destroy star systems and its shields had never been breached. Fleet Admiral Dan Cooper led the human assault force, a massive fleet of over 6,000 ships drawn from every human colony in known space. Beside the human vessels flew ships of a dozen other species, Thorak warriors seeking revenge for millennia of slavery, Sakari fighters eager to prove their worth, Menturi defenders who had thrown off their chains. "Admiral," reported Captain Ella Grant from her position commanding the advanced scouts, "we're detecting massive defensive arrays around the station. Energy signatures suggest weapons platforms capable of planetary bombardment." Dan studied the tactical display. The Nexus Station was indeed formidable, surrounded by defensive satellites and protected by energy shields that could withstand the fury of stars. But the humans had not come unprepared. "Begin Phase 1, Dan commanded. Across the human fleet, new weapons systems came online. These were not the conventional weapons that had defeated Council forces throughout the galaxy. These were humanity's ultimate secrets. Quantum disruptors that could tear apart the very fabric of space, dark matter cannons that fired pieces of collapsed stars, and phase generators that could shift entire fleets through dimensions the Council had never imagined. On the Nexus Station, High Counselor Mordak watched the approaching fleet with a mixture of rage and despair. His grand fleet, once the terror of the galaxy, had been destroyed or scattered. His empire, built over 50 millennia, was crumbling. Only the Nexus Station remained, the final stronghold of Council power. "How many ships?" Mordak asked his tactical officer. "Over 8,000, High Counselor. Human vessels and their allies. They have us surrounded." Mordak laughed bitterly. "Surrounded? The Council, masters of the galaxy, surrounded by former slaves and upstart primitives." But even as he spoke, Mordak felt a grudging respect for the humans. They had done what he had thought impossible. They had united the galaxy's enslaved species and given them the courage to fight. General Kek Thul, the Council's military commander, stood beside Mordak at the command center. "High Counselor, we still have the station's primary weapons. We can destroy half their fleet before they reach us." "And then what?" Mordak asked. "They will destroy us and the Council will be extinct. Perhaps it is time to admit that our age has ended." The battle for the Nexus station began with a display of firepower that dwarfed every previous conflict in galactic history. The station's weapons lanced out across space, destroying human ships with beams of pure energy. But for every human vessel that fell, 2 more took its place. Captain Ella Grant led her squadron in a daring assault on the station's shield generators. Her ships, small and fast, darted between the massive defensive platforms like insects around a giant. Their quantum torpedoes phased through the station's shields and exploded deep within the structure. Shields failing on Section 7, reported the station's defense. Coordinator Admiral Dan Cooper saw the opening immediately. All ships concentrate fire on Section 7. Punch through their defenses. The combined firepower of 8,000 ships focused on a single point of the station's defenses. The ancient shields, which had protected the Council for millennia, finally cracked and failed. Human assault troops, led by Colonel Alex Murphy, boarded the station through the breach. The fighting inside was fierce but brief. Council soldiers, demoralized by the collapse of their empire, offered little resistance. Murphy found High Counselor Mordak in the central command chamber, standing alone before the great windows that showed the battle raging outside. The ancient ruler looked tired and defeated. "I suppose you've come to kill me," Mordak said without turning around. "No," Murphy replied. "We've come to offer you a choice." Mordak finally turned to face the human colonel. "What choice?" "Join the new galactic government as equals or return to your homeworlds and never leave them again." "Equals?" Mordak laughed. "After 50,000 years of ruling, you offer us equality?" Murphy nodded. "It's more than you ever offered anyone else." The surrender of the Nexus station marked the end of the Council's empire. Across the galaxy, remaining Council forces laid down their weapons or fled to their home systems. The age of tyranny was over, but the humans faced a new challenge: what to do with their victory. President Ryan Collins addressed the galaxy from the Nexus station, which had been renamed Freedom Station. "Citizens of the galaxy," he began, "today marks the end of 50,000 years of oppression. The Council's empire has fallen, not to replace it with another empire, but to create something new, a government where all species are equal, where freedom is protected, and where no one bends the knee to tyrants." Diplomatic attaché Frank Stone worked with representatives from dozens of species to draft the new galactic charter. The document established a democratic republic where each species had a voice proportional to its population, but where fundamental rights could never be voted away. The right to freedom, Frank read from the charter, the right to self-determination, the right to defend one's home. These are not privileges granted by government. They are inherent rights of all thinking beings. Not every species embraced the new order. Several former council races, unable to accept a galaxy where they were no longer supreme, retreated to their home systems and closed their borders. The humans let them go, posting monitors to ensure they never again tried to conquer their neighbors. The Veltani were among the most resistant. Ambassador Zix Thera, who had delivered the original ultimatum to Earth, spoke at the final negotiations. "You humans speak of freedom and equality," Zix Thera said, "but you impose your values on us. How is that different from what the Council did?" Captain Kate Ross, now serving as Earth's representative to the new government, answered calmly, "Ambassador, we're not imposing our values. We're protecting everyone else from yours. You're free to live however you want in your own space. You're just not free to enslave others." The transformation of galactic civilization was not instant or easy. Rebuilding worlds devastated by Council rule took decades. Species that had been enslaved for millennia had to learn how to govern themselves. Trade networks collapsed and had to be rebuilt. Wars broke out between species with ancient grudges, but the humans provided more than just military protection. They shared their technology freely, helping former slaves build their own defenses. They provided medical aid to worlds recovering from Council exploitation. Most importantly, they proved that their victory was not about human dominance, but about universal freedom. Admiral Grace Kelly, now serving as the first Supreme Commander of the Galactic Defense Force, addressed the criticism that humans had too much influence in the new government. "Some say we humans control too much," she said. "They're right. We do have disproportionate power and we don't apologize for it. We earned that power by being willing to fight when everyone else was too afraid. But power without purpose is tyranny, and our purpose is simple: to make sure this galaxy never again falls under the rule of oppressors. 5 years after the fall of the Council, the new Galactic Republic held its first truly democratic elections. Representatives from over 300 species gathered at Freedom Station to choose their leaders. President Collins, now in his 70s, had decided not to seek the presidency of the new republic. Instead, he supported Vexthul, the former thorax slave who had become a symbol of liberation. "My fellow citizens," Vexthul said in his inaugural address, "5 years ago I was a slave in the mines of Kepler 442b. Today, I stand before you as your elected leader." This transformation was not magic. It was the result of beings who refused to accept that tyranny was inevitable. He looked directly at the human delegation. The humans showed us something we had forgotten, that free people who stand together cannot be defeated by any tyrant, no matter how powerful. The ceremony concluded with the lighting of the Freedom Flame, a beacon that would burn at the heart of Freedom Station as long as the Republic endured. As the flame ignited, representatives from across the galaxy sang together in hundreds of languages, but with one voice later, in a private moment. President Collins met with High Counselor Mordak, who had chosen to remain on Freedom Station as an observer for his people. "Do you regret it?" Collins asked. "Fighting us, I mean?" Mordak considered the question carefully. "No. We ruled through fear for 50,000 years. We had forgotten that there was any other way. You reminded us that some things are worth fighting for even against impossible odds. And now we learn to be citizens instead of rulers. It is difficult, but perhaps it is time." The galaxy had indeed learned a new lesson. For 50,000 years, the strong had ruled the weak through fear and force. The humans had shown another way, the free defending the enslaved, the powerful protecting the weak, and the idea that some principles were worth any sacrifice. Terror had once gripped the Galactic Council because they faced beings who refused to bend. But that terror had transformed into something else. Hope that even the mightiest tyranny could fall if enough people were willing to stand up and say no.